Hey y'all, DJ Short from Roto-World's NBC Sports Edge here. Roto-World NBC Sports Edge, whatever you want to call it these days. My name's DJ Short. I'm your host for the next 30, 40 minutes or so. Take your fantasy baseball questions here every Tuesday, 1 p.m. Eastern Time. Already some stuff going down today, early in the day, this beautiful Tuesday afternoon here. I'm on the East Coast. I'm in New York, but it is a perfect day outside. This is baseball weather. This is what you hope for. A beautiful day to go to the ballpark. Feeling like spring out there. But the big news here at the top of the show is Tim Anderson. So he's going to miss 2 to 4 weeks with a sprained left knee. He was involved in a rundown yesterday, and he leaned into an errant throw. The base runner Matt Wallner, so basically collided into his knee. So we're talking about 2 to 4 weeks. So early May, mid May, something like that. Lennon Sosa has been called up to replace Tim Anderson on the active roster. Sosa actually has had some interesting numbers in AAA this year, really off to a monster start in AAA. Just 23 years old, some pretty good pop in his bat as well. A pretty good prospect there for the White Sox. He should see some playing time while Anderson recovers from the sprained left knee here. Is he someone you're picking up in a mixed league? Unless it's like a really deep one, probably not. I think Sosa's more of a wait and see option, but the shortstop position has taken a bit of a blow here in the past couple of days. O'Neal Cruz with the fractured ankle had surgery. He's expected to miss about 4 months. So shortstop taking a hit here in the early part of the season. There are alternatives out there on the waiver wire. Actually, uh, recommended Ha-Sung Kim in our pickups of the day column on NBC Sports Edge today. Um, he obviously, qualifies all over the place: second base, shortstop, third base. Kim, you know, sitting prominently in that Padres lineup. When Fernando Tatis Jr. comes back, that lineup just gets better and better, and I think you're going to want a piece of that lineup. Kim can steal some bases. There's a little bit of pop there as well. Should help all over the place on your roster. I think John Birdie is interesting with the Marlins as well, with Joey Wendell sidelined due to an oblique injury. Speed, goes without saying. But in this environment where teams are running more and more, yeah, I think Birdie should be rostered as long as the playing time's there. Some good on base ability as well. Bryson Stott hit leadoff for the Phillies last night. Probably not. I don't know if it's going to happen regularly. Um, JT Realmuto was out of the lineup, so I'm not sure if that's going to happen on a regular basis, but he's off to a good start. Jane Segura can make an impact across the board. Bryce Terang, who was kind of the hot name last week as far as waiver wires are concerned, I think he's still interesting. Colton Wong, off to a terrible start, but I think, you know, he's one of those guys that at the end of the year, the numbers are going to be there. Maybe not flashy, but steady. And I think he's worth a pickup. I talked about a lot more of these shortstop options, middle infielder options on the Circling the Bases podcast yesterday. Myself, Scott Pianowski from Yahoo. We have episodes coming out Mondays and Wednesdays. Monday episode focused more on weekend headlines, fab pickups over the weekend. Our Wednesday show is strictly a waiver wire show. So if you're looking for help middle of the week, we try to give you a bunch of options and different depth of leagues and stuff like that. So definitely check out the show tomorrow. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Um, Hopefully, we'll uncover some good pickups for you throughout the week. So I wanted to give you guys a little bit of time to get in here and submit your questions. And again, this is a fantasy baseball Q&A, but if you want to just talk regular baseball, I'm cool with that too. But happy to answer your questions. Get them in here, and we'll hang out for the next half hour or so. Talk some baseball. Let's do it. All right. So first question from Lou. He said, I have both Jake McCarthy and Estuary Ruiz for stolen bases and need to drop one when Michael Harris II comes off the IL. Similar full season projections. Ruiz hitting ninth against right-handers, both scuffling right now. Thoughts? So I valued McCarthy higher coming into the year, and we're a week and a half into the season. I know McCarthy has not been great so far, but if I had to roster one of them, I would still say McCarthy is the choice. Not sure about the power you're going to get from Ruiz. It's also just a bad lineup, terrible lineup there in Oakland. McCarthy's lineup there with the Diamondbacks is just deeper, stronger. I think McCarthy's in the better situation. Ruiz faster, but McCarthy more valuable across the board. I think, at the end of the year, that's what we're going to look at here. Ruiz still a bit unproven. McCarthy showed at least in more extended playing time last year that he can put up some good numbers. So, yeah, I know both not off to great start so far, but I would bank on McCarthy being the more viable option uh, as we move along here. Uh, let's see. Oh, quick reminder, download the RotoWorld app to receive breaking player news all season long. Stay ahead of the competition by favoriting players on your roster. Get the latest injury updates, player news, much more delivered right to your phone. It's available in your app store today. Remember to get that RotoWorld app, especially if you are in a league that has rolling waivers every day. It's kind of a free for all out there on waivers. You're going to want this app to get the latest injury updates, especially for like closers or like the Tim Anderson situation. You're going to want to be out there as quick as you can, jump on waivers, pick up that replacement, pick up a speculative closer, or a prospect call up too. We've already seen that happen in a couple of cases. Grayson Rodriguez gets a quick call up that we didn't expect for Francisco Alvarez, and that's another example. So make sure to get that app to stay on top of things. Let's see. Next up, we have Mitch. Thoughts on Tovar and his slow start? What's the part of this question? Should I drop Gene Segura and take a chance on his upside? So let me look at Tovar's numbers so far. I know they haven't been like jumping off the page or anything like that. So Tovar is 8 for 36, 3 RBIs. Does he have to steal a base? Had a really good spring. The Rockies are in the middle of a homestand right now. I think coming into the year, I had Tovar higher than Segura. So if you want to make that move, I wouldn't uh, I wouldn't quibble with that too much. Segura is playing in a tough home park. Tovar has Coors Field on his side. Um, I think when the Rockies are playing in Coors, you're going to want Tovar in your lineup, and there's going to be some ups and downs with Tovar, but the good thing about him is that he's a really solid defender. I think the Rockies will give him every chance to, wade through those initial struggles that are going to happen against major league pitching. So yeah, I think I'd make that switch on the upside of Tovar, and I do think he's going to run too sooner or later. Question from Eric. Recommend a seventh starting pitcher in a 5x5 quality starts head-to-head league. Choices would be Brito, McGill, Peterson, Clevenger, Marquez, Keller, Heaney, Lugo, Rogers, Bubich, or Whitlock. So I actually wrote about Bubich in the pickups of the day column today. You can read on NBCSportsEdge.com. We have our pickups of the day column every weekday. So definitely check that out. I'm, trying to recommend widely available players, both position players and pitchers. Bubich was someone I wrote about today. He's looked great through his first two starts. Velocity up across the board with all of his stuff. Switched up the pitch mix, throwing the four seamer less. Added a new slider, which and it was interesting to read his comments that he's throwing it differently, righties versus lefties. So playing off the curveball, velocity separation with four pitches in his arsenal. he's suddenly pretty intriguing. Had 19 whiffs in his start against the Giants on Sunday. I think at only 76 pitches. I think he's a fun pickup. Heaney looked pretty good last night. Struck out 9 in a row, right? Um, Seth Lugo, I think, is really intriguing. Someone who's always had that arsenal to pitch in the rotation, has just never really got that extended opportunity with the Mets. It's happening now. Um, and I think he's a fun pickup too. The curveball spin rate is 100th percentile with Lugo, but he has the arsenal too. Um, it's an interesting group. I think I'd ride with Lugo and see how it turns out, but I think these are all like pretty, not all, but most of them are pretty solid pickups in a mixed league right now. But yeah, I think Lugo's the play for me for now. Heaney's interesting. Bubic is someone you should be watching. He gets the Braves this week, which I could take it or leave it there. But yeah, I think there's a lot of paths here to value. So up next, all my IL now taken with Tim Anderson going on the IL. Was stashing Bayo, but I'm thinking to drop for Ketel Marte. Thoughts on that? So I like Bayo, but yeah, Ketel Marte I think makes sense as a pickup, especially if you lost Tim Anderson and you need some more depth to your starting roster right now. Certainly Bayo, I think he can come up and be mixed league viable, but he's still a young pitcher, and progress not always a straight line with these young pitchers. So to bank on him and to come up right away and be a difference maker, hard to say. I also don't know the context of your league and who your other starting pitcher options are. But for the most part, I think this is a good call for this type of move here. Has Gunnar? I have Gunnar Henderson. Do I need to worry? 15 team league, not many options available. Not really worried about Gunnar Henderson this early in the season. I think we're going to see sort of the cream rise to the top here as far as Henderson's concerned. He's striking out a ton, which is not what you want to see. Obviously, he struck out 40% of the time, taking a lot of pitches, but he's also hitting the ball hard when he does make contact. The speed is really good as well. He's hitting the ball in the air. So I like sooner or later, I think this is going to work itself out. If he strikes out 40% of the time, for another month, then we have some worries. And we do tend to see, strikeout rates, usually the approach kind of stuff stabilizes fairly quickly. So we could have a worry, a few weeks from now, but for the time being, I think um, given what you draft, where you drafted him, he's not someone you're going to give up on this soon. So hopefully we see it come together. Question from Steven here. What are your expectations for Francisco Alvarez? Is he going to get enough of a shot to give fantasy value? I think the plus for Alvarez is that the DH spot is there for the taking. You know what I mean? Especially against left-handed pitching, which has been a trouble spot for the Mets. Dating back to the start of last season, at the very least. They need that bat against lefties. Alvarez kind of a work in progress behind the plate. I think Tomas Nido is still going to play quite a bit back there, and maybe especially in Kode Senga starts. They've worked well together thus far, so I think it's going to be maybe an even split behind the plate with Nido, and Alvarez should at least get a good number of at bats against lefties out of the DH spot. Tommy Pham's an option there, but the Mets can mix and match as far as those matchups are concerned. I think big picture for mixed leagues, two catcher leagues, yes, he should be rostered. Like a deeper mixed league, like 15 teams, yes, he should be rostered. But in your more standard 12-team leagues, I'm not as necessarily sold. And he's also utility only in some formats right now. It's going to take a few starts behind the plate for Alvarez to get that catcher eligibility. But yeah, I wouldn't go crazy from the start here. We have to see the playing time. You have to see how he adjusts against major league pitching. I think there are probably better options uh, out there in more standard formats. Castellanos and Telez. I'm not really sure um, what the question's asking there. Nick Castellanos has gotten off to a really weird start. I tweeted about it yesterday. I didn't see his results from last night's game where the Phillies really uh, put a hurting on the Marlins. And so Castellanos went 3 for 5, 3 RBIs, a double, 3 runs scored. So pretty much everyone um, contributed to that win last night for the Phillies. But yeah, he's had a weird season so far, and not necessarily encouraging as far as the bounce back is concerned. And really, a lot of the data from last year didn't say that a rebound was coming either. So I feel really weird about where he is right now. Tellez is off to a slow start as well, just 1 home run through 8 games. And we'll see. He's not necessarily secure there with Luke Voigt in the mix too, but I think when it's all said and done, Tellez should be hitting for some power. The question from Mark: Start Wesneski, Hayden Wesneski today versus Seattle. Would you prefer rostering Elder or Whitlock over Wesneski? I think we got to give him a shot here. I think today there's a lot of aces going. There's DeGrom and Cole and McClanahan and Otani. I mean, those are the no doubters. I think Wesneski is kind of a little more iffy. I would maybe still start him, but I would hope for signs of progress here. He looked awesome this spring. He looked great in the limited time we saw him with the Cubs last year. Where I'm going to hold on to Wesneski. I drafted him in a lot of leagues, and I want to be patient and see how it plays out. Elder looked good last night, but um, he's kind of iffy to me too. I'm not necessarily sold. Whitlock, it's a season debut kind of situation against the Rays, who've just been on fire. I wouldn't start Whitlock today. You know what I mean? First start of the season, I just feel like that's a trap kind of situation. Kyle Wright makes his debut today as well. He was delayed to start the year due to a shoulder issue. He starts against the Reds. I'd probably be more likely to start, Kyle Wright. But even that's a little like, if you want to wait and see, totally understandable as well. But I think if I had to rate these guys, I would probably go Wisniewski, Whitlock, Elder, just in a vacuum as far as starts for today and maybe moving forward too. Hopefully, we see some progress from Wisniewski. What are your thoughts on streaming Matt Manning? What are your thoughts on stashing Chase Silseth? Any thoughts on an Ellie De La Cruz call up? So, yeah, Matt Manning, I would definitely not start tonight. Gets the Blue Jays, who are just way too scary for me to start Matt Manning. And, another key to that is like the pitching matchup, just works totally against the Tigers tonight. So, yeah, I think I would sit that one out. Chase Silseth, I mean, maybe it takes an injury for him to get into the Angels rotation again. But the numbers in the minors have been really good. And he flashed some potential with the Angels last year. I think and really made it to the majors very, very quickly. I don't think he was not quite ready for it. So I think he's a fun prospect. And when he gets the call up, he's going to be someone we're going to be watching closely. So maybe he's in the back of the minds for fantasy managers at this point, but I think he's promising. Ellie De La Cruz, I have no idea what the timetable is there for him, but certainly, in a dynasty keeper kind of league, he's going to be rostered already. But yeah, I don't know if I would take up a bench spot with De La Cruz just yet. All right. Up next, really tough dynasty trade. Is Riley, Bay, Gallen, Romano, my Pete, Trout, Tyler Anderson, and Cobb. I do have Olson in house to replace Pete. Um, yeah, I don't think I would do that trade, honestly. Yeah, I think you're giving up. I mean, I don't know the full context of where you are from like a save situation and then your rotation and stuff like that. So it's a tough call. It's hard to say without knowing the full context, but uh, Trout to me, even though he doesn't run, like he's still just incredibly valuable. And yeah, Alonso's one of the safest power bats in the game. I think in a vacuum, I think I like uh, side B better, but I don't know the full context, so it's tough for me to answer. It is a tough deal. I would say that it is tough. Let's see. Who would you pick between Edward Cabrera and Brian Bayo? Bayo for me. Cabrera just needs to throw strikes, and I don't know if he's ready to do that right now. I think he has lots of potential. He's in a good pitcher ballpark, but yeah, 13 walks in 6 and 2/3 innings so far. That's not going to work. And if the walks keep happening, I think Cabrera could be sent down to the minors. Like that's just not gonna work. Uh, Bayo is not a proven pitcher at this point either. But I think the Red Sox are going to give him every opportunity to succeed at the major league level. We saw the kind of stuff that he had upon his call up last year, and while he was delayed, what we did see in spring training was really, really awesome. And yeah, I think he can come up and make an impact. Um, so yeah, I would be inclined to go with Bayo there. Before we move on, just a quick word here. Every season is draft season. Get your Roto World Draft Guide bundle today and dominate your football, baseball, and basketball drafts packed with profiles, rankings, projections. Order today and get all three Roto Draft Guides for the price of two. Plus, use promo code BERRY, BERRY, and save an extra 20% at checkout. We will be likely thinking about fantasy football before you know an NFL draft season coming up very soon as well. So get out ahead on this. You get three draft guides for the price of two. Pretty great deal. So up next here, a question from Mitch. How worried should I be about Josh Bell? Not too worried at this point. Got off to a great start with the Nationals last year. After he was traded to the Padres, the numbers just sank like a stone. Um, I don't know what to think about that really, but he's not the kind of guy who's going to hit like 30 plus homers. But I like the approach. I like the fit there in Cleveland with the table setters that they have. I think sooner or later he's going to be fine. I thought of him as in that range of top 12 fantasy first baseman, and I still think he can be that in that Guardians lineup. Not the start that maybe you were hoping for, but I still think he could be valuable. So we probably got another 15 minutes or so here. So if you want to get your questions in, I would be happy to answer them. Throw them my way, and yeah, let's talk. It doesn't have to just be fantasy baseball. It can be anything on your mind. The hot start that the Rays are on, 10-0 to start the season, and I know there's been some criticism of their schedule, and like, yeah, of course they steamroll the A's and the Nationals, and but they still got to go out there and win the games. I took the under on the Rays win total to begin the year, and it's nice to know I'm like 2 weeks into the season and I already know I'm going to lose that one. But hey, tons of credit to the Rays. They are a lot of fun to watch right now. Another question here from a fellow DJ. Will Brett Beatty take over third base sooner than later? Escobar is horrible. Again, that is your opinion. But Escobar hit a homer over the weekend, and he's been making the plays at third base. I think the Mets will ride this out and see if Escobar can turn things around offensively. It's just a matter of time before we see Brett Beatty. He had a little bit of a scare with his thumb last week, but fortunately, That turned out to be minor, just inflammation. He's already back in the lineup. Assuming the thumb is good and he keeps hitting, like I think he's going to be up within a month and a half. If I had to, spitball it here, I think we're going to see him sooner or later. Do you stash Brett Beatty now in a standard mixed league? I think if you really want to take a shot, he's a logical candidate to be called up soon. Looking at the field of top prospects who are still in the minors, he's probably one of the best that can make an impact this year. So I could be into that, but it's hard to predict. And sort of like we saw with Alvarez, like we didn't expect to see Francisco Alvarez up this soon, but injuries made that happen with Omar Narvaez. So yeah. All right, let's keep rolling along here. Rather have Garrett Whitlock or Nick Martinez from the Padres? It's a tough one. I love the Padres lineup, but when Joe Musgrove comes back, like that could be a bit of a log jam there in San Diego. I know they plan to roll with a 6-man rotation, so Whitlock should get every opportunity as well there in Boston. That's a tough one. I think they're both kind of like you're playing the matchups. You're looking for where they're pitching. I don't think it's such a simple answer. Yeah, that is a tough one. I'm gonna go with Martinez here and just see how it plays out in San Diego. Again, going with the 6-man rotation, maybe there is room for him there to keep rolling here with the Padres rotation. So we'll see. Question up next from Steven. What are your thoughts on Bryce Elder's chances of staying in the show for good? He's always produced when called upon for spot starts, but somehow he's been pushed back into the shadows. Yeah, I mean, I think he can if he keeps pitching well. I mean, we learned today that Ian Anderson needs Tommy John surgery, so that takes a name out of the mix. Max Fried will eventually be back. Michael Soroka is pitching well in AAA right now, but I think the Braves are going to be very, very careful with his workload. Dylan Dodd hasn't been good. So I think Elder will, he's going to be in this mix. Whether he is someone who is a long-term mixed league starter, I'm a little unclear on that. But I do think he has pretty good stuff. And, what he showed last night was not like a fluke. So yeah, I think he's more of a matchup play for me than anything else. But propped up by that Braves lineup, which doesn't look as great with Michael Harris hurt and Travis d'Arnaud out with a concussion as well. But I still expect this to be one of the better lineups in the National League. There's a lot of win potential here. So yeah, I think he's interesting, but not someone I'm necessarily super high on. So Perdomo, one of the hot pickups. Let me get his numbers up here with the Diamondbacks right now. And in the aftermath of the O'Neal Cruz injury, I saw Geraldo Perdomo picked up in a bunch of leagues with Fab over the weekend. Perdomo was not great with the Diamondbacks last year. Hit just 195 at a slug of 262. He's been awesome this year, though, but we're talking about a very, very, very small sample, like 20 plate appearances. So I wouldn't go crazy here for Perdomo. The numbers in the minors have been, not necessarily awesome either. Speed, yes. So that maybe is a path, but I think short-term pickup here it makes sense, but I wouldn't go too nuts or like drop anybody really important. So we have about 10 more minutes here. If you have any more fantasy baseball questions, feel free to throw them my way. We'll try to get to them here before our time wraps up. So Jonathan India or Gleyber Torres rest of the season head-to-head 12 team. Uh, I was higher on Gleyber Torres coming into the year. I liked India as a bounce back guy as well, and I don't think that's really changed. But yeah, Torres in Yankee Stadium in that lineup. Uh, there's power and speed in his profile. Um, yeah, I think he's locked into an everyday lineup spot. Um, I mean, India's in a good situation there in Cincinnati as well, but I think Torres was sneaky good last year, and I think there's every reason to think he'll continue that this season. So yeah, I think I would go with Torres here. Let's see, Justin, what are your thoughts on Tatis when I come back? When he comes back, should I pick him up? Well, I would think Tatis is rostered everywhere, but yeah, I think Tatis can be I think Tatis can remind everyone very quickly why he was, one of the best players in baseball just a couple of years ago. Why we were talking about him as a first overall pick in a mixed league. Um, Shortstop eligible, but also outfield. He's going to play right field there for the Padres when he comes back. Probably going to be the leadoff hitter for the Padres. So, yeah, I think he can hit the ground running when he comes back and uh, be a stud. So I happily have Tatis stashed on a couple of rosters right now. And yeah, granted, missed 20 games, but that's sort of like an IL stint for a player. So that didn't really, excuse me, that didn't really scare me off from picking him up in a mixed league draft this year. So yeah, we still have a few more minutes here before we go. So feel free to throw me some questions. This is added context from a question we had earlier about a dynasty league trade. Only rostered third baseman is Urshela. This was a trade where he was going to get Austin Riley, but give up Mike Trout and Pete Alonso. So rotation: Wheeler, Woodruff, Perez, Wisniewski, Freeland, Heaney, and doesn't look like there's much saves here. Well, yeah, he does have some folks, but yeah, I mean, I guess in a vacuum, this does make some sense here. So it's always tough to give up a Trout and a um, Pete Alonso. So yeah, that's it's hard to give up on those guys, but I think in full context, the trade does make some sense. So yeah, I would say go for it if that makes some sense for you. Let's see, what else do I want to get to before we go? I want to talk about Adam Duvall. So one of the hottest hitters in baseball in this early part of the season suffered a wrist fracture on Sunday diving for a ball. Doesn't need surgery, but he's going to miss 6 to 8 weeks. Tough blow there in Boston. We're going to see a lot more Kike Hernandez in center field. Raimel Tapia should play more. Rob Refsnyder. Bobby Dahlbeck was called up. He should play a lot, but the Red Sox likely to see a lot of left-handed pitching. Replacements here. So Austin Hayes, I think, is an interesting name to keep an eye on. Really a standout in terms of batted ball data in the early part of the season, even if the numbers don't entirely reflect that. Hayes is rostered in just 28% of Yahoo leagues, so keep an eye on him. Jorge Soler has deserved better luck than he's had to date as far as his batted ball data. Jared Kelnick, continued strikeout issues, but he's hitting the ball hard so far. And to go a little bit deeper, I'm intrigued by Matt Vierling with the Tigers. I picked him up in a couple of leagues over the weekend. There's a fun combination of pop and speed in Vierling's profile. Of course, it was acquired from the Phillies during the offseason. I tweeted this out earlier, but Vierling is just one of 3 players in the 90th percentile or higher in both average exit velocity and sprint speed so far this season. The only other 2 are Jose Siri, which might also come as a surprise. Siri is on the injured list with a hamstring strain right now, and Mike Trout. That's it. Those 3, Matt Vierling, Jose Siri, Mike Trout, 90th percentile or higher in both average exit velocity and sprint speed so far this season. And Vierling is available in more than 90% of Yahoo leagues. Again, you're not probably dropping anyone super important for him in a standard mixed league, He's more of a wait and see that these skills translate to actual results on the field. But yeah, if you're in a deeper mixed league and you lost the Duvall, I think Veerling makes a ton of sense as a pickup here. A couple more questions before we go. Steven, do you think Whit Merrifield can be a bounce back guy this year? What are your expectations for him? I don't really love Whit Merrifield at this point, and he's not going to get the volume in that Blue Jays lineup that he did during his time with the Royals. Just doesn't make a lot of hard contact. I don't think big power numbers are coming his way. The speed is still very good, even in this small sample we've had so far this season. He's 91st percentile in sprint speed. So, in this environment, he can pick up some steals, and there will be other counting stats in available in this Blue Jays lineup. So, yeah, I think he could be good, but I think his days of being like a lock him in type of starter in a mixed league is just not going to happen. Wrapping things up here, Mitch, will Jose Alvarado take over as Phillies closer? I think he certainly could do that in short order here. Alvarado has been insane so far this year. He's basically struck out like 80% of the batters he's faced or something crazy like that. So he's been great. Pitching from the left side, is the preference to use them more in certain matchups when you really need a strikeout, especially with a tough left-handed hitter? Maybe, So I think that's the danger here with Alvarado. So, but yeah, if he keeps pitching like this, it's gonna be tough to avoid him maybe at the end of games. So we'll see what happens there. But if you want to stash, certainly by all means go for it. And these days, having relievers who can come in and get strikeouts and help your ratios, that's not bad from a fantasy perspective either, even if that pitcher is not getting the bulk of save chances. Final question here today from Lou. Jack Flaherty just dropped in my 10-team head-to-head category league. Would you rate him above Hunter Brown or Dustin May for the rest of the season? I absolutely would not. Jack Flaherty still has that name recognition, but nothing I've seen from him until this point makes me think that he is that pitcher we thought he was a couple of years ago. Maybe that changes over the course of the season. I'm not quite sure. But certainly in a 10-team league, I see him as very fringy and not someone who necessarily needs to be rostered at this point in time. Dustin May, absolutely. I think he should be rostered everywhere. I think there's Dustin May, gap, Hunter Brown, gap, Jack Flaherty as things stand right now. May, I think, has a chance to be a breakout pitcher where we look at him next year as like a top 25 starting pitcher. So I'm a big fan of what Dustin May can do, propped up by the Dodgers and the situation there. So, I'd go May, Brown, and then Flaherty. So stick with what you got, assuming Brown or May are on your roster. And that'll do it for me. Thanks again for the questions. I will see you back here next Tuesday at 1 p.m. Eastern time. And in the meantime, make sure to subscribe to Circling the Bases. Get it anywhere you can get your podcasts. Myself and Scott Pianowski will be doing a Waiver Wire Wednesday show tomorrow. So some of the names we talked about here will be in there, but a bunch of interesting new pickups as well. So stay tuned to that show. You can follow me on Twitter at DJ Short. Until next time, take care.